Battle of Religion and Religion Taught in Public Schools by Garrett. When you send your children off to school every morning, do you ever disagree or agree with the religion that is presented to them in the school classroom? What information is acceptable and what information is persuading the children to become a religion they are not? Where should the line be drawn? In today's world, there is a battle of religion and a concern with religion taught in public schools. Some feel it should be taught in schools just like any other subject, such as history or English. In addition, others feel that praying before the big rivalry football game is unacceptable. This is a popular topic that is continuing to grow. New information and ideas are always evolving. If you do believe it's important that children today learn religion in school, how do you go about teaching it without being biased? Teachers today have to be very careful on how they present these topics to students. Combining religion and awareness in public education facilities can be difficult without trying to persuade the students what should be practiced or not. As far as the law and practices that we have currently, teachers feel that you can educate students on religion just as you can educate students of the events of history. No court system has decided if there should be a law pertaining to the outside community limiting the handouts of Bibles, allowing religion to be spread. On the other side, students coming together for a prayer before big games are not allowed. One example would be football players at Odessa High School in Texas holding an unsanctioned prayer session in September of 2001. The following year, on June 19th, Supreme Court decision banned school-sanctioned pregame players from praying. Public schools like the one in Texas are no longer able to hold a group prayer like they used to before their big game. Along with this school, there are many other public schools that were very upset by this. In addition, schools were not allowed to post 10 Commandments posters on their school walls. Schools believe that this is dividing the Christian religion with the learning environment. When followers of a religion come into schools and pass out Bibles or brochures regarding upcoming events or special groups they would like the students to know about is an example of sneaking religion into the schools. There are no laws now regarding the papers or small Bibles that are optional to take, but some feel they are simply trying to sneak religion into the schools and they are interfering with children's education. This first began in 1770 when the government called for a separation between the church and state. Shortly after, the First Amendment was assessed by Thomas Jefferson. He said, "I contemplate with sovereign reverence that the act of the whole American people, which declared that the legislator should make no law respecting an establishment of religion, prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state." This was the start of new laws put into place for schools for the idea of religion. Although the First Amendment addresses religion, it continues to be debated. In 1791, Congress passed the Bill of Rights stating, "Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof." This was saying that the government was not going to take away people's right to believe and practice in what they want. The government felt at this time that religion should be presented as people wished. Later, in 1940, the Supreme Court's Cantwell v. Connecticut decision upholds the power of the 14th Amendment to make religion, or establishment, a section binding on the states as well as the federal government. Following this case, 40 years later, an amendment authorizing school prayer won a majority vote in the House, but not the two-thirds majority required for a constitutional amendment. It took a very long time to decide whether children had the right to pray as they wish. Lastly, but more recently, on June 19th in 2000, the Santa Fe Independent School District went against the Supreme Court and said that students cannot use a school public address system to recite prayers at school-sponsored events. This is when the change began for schools to not allow students to pray on school grounds. Some people fear that after this change that there will be a new one added in the near future, saying that students will not be able to even speak about their religion at school. Students should have their freedom to do as they choose. Public schools do still allow there to be groups outside of school to get together for religious activities. Although they are still allowing students to partake in these, they have to make sure it does not disrupt, harass, or otherwise impose upon others who did not wish to engage in the activity. Students believe that they are not afraid to join what they are interested in. The general rule for most clubs permits students to meet during school hours, but outside religious organizations and clubs must not meet at public schools. After school hours, such groups may meet at a public school only if the school permits other outside clubs and organizations to meet at the same time and does not endorse the club's religious activity. The public schools have to watch this closely, especially for minorities, because they want to make sure every student feels comfortable and is not harassed for what they believe in. The school district must proactively work to prevent even the perception that it may be endorsing the club's religious activity. In Good News Club v. Milford Central School, the U.S. Supreme Court found no perceived endorsement of a religious club's activities because the club meetings were not held in elementary school classrooms, the instructors were not teachers, and the students ranged in age, and the children who attended the club had obtained signed permission slips from their parents. Most importantly, though, schools must be very careful and that they never appear to approve or disapprove of a religion. When religion is mentioned in public schools, the school has to be careful it follows these guidelines so every child has their own opinion and choice to choose which religion they would like to be a part of. Herbert Blinder said that in his book, I quote, "If in any sex education class a student remarks that abortion should be illegal because God has prohibited it, a teacher should not silence the remark, ridicule it, rule it out of bounds, or endorse it, any more than a student may silence a student's religiously based comment in favor of choice." End quote. School officials must be very careful as to what they choose to let students say in class or how to react. I feel that religion should be taught in schools just as any other subject should. It's a way of life, and everyone has their own path they may choose to take. In history, we are educated with learning about horrific historical events, such as wars that have many sides to the story. Why are we not able to learn about different religious practices around the world? Teachers never seem to take sides whether they believe we should or should not have had the war and how we could have done things differently in the past. Education is designed to help mold students into being aware and knowledgeable. Information and facts do nothing but broaden the horizon. In addition, I believe teachers could educate students on historical events that play an important part in history without standing in front of the classroom preaching. Preaching could be interpreted as trying to persuade students to believe in what they believe in. Learning how other cultures operate and practice their religion does not persuade students on becoming what they are. I believe learning about these religions would be fundamental into finding their identity. In addition, this is our country, and who we are is a part of us. Everyone is different, and that is what makes our country so diverse. We allow everyone to have their own freedom of speech, and along with that, we should have people feel comfortable enough to practice in what they believe in. We need to let people live the way they want to at the end of the day. Quote, "The First Amendment requires the state to be neutral in its relations with groups of religious believers and non-believers. It does not require the state to be their adversary. State power is no more to be used so as to handicap religion than it is to favor them." End quote. These laws are trying to regulate what's going on with the difference in opinion, but I think we should have the right to practice our beliefs. Practicing our belief is our right to do it at any time or allows us to read a book in a quiet moment. Religious studies can be done outside of school, but teaching religion has to have its proper setting. A teacher could not stand in a public school setting and try to press upon the student's particular religious beliefs. When teachers come across religious symbols in the classroom, teachers are able to recognize them, but are not supposed to bring them up on a regular basis. Although religious symbols are supposed to be used as a reference for students to learn from, teachers must understand the fine line between the two of them. Especially for minority-based holidays, they want to recognize them but make sure they don't celebrate them. Schools say this leads to a conflict in the end. One major change over the years in classrooms is that they are not permitted to celebrate any religious holidays. Christmas is no longer an acceptable holiday to be celebrated because it is based on religious beliefs. When teachers want to demonstrate anything religious-based in the classroom, they are not allowed to have students sing any sort of music about it. In music class, they are not allowed to sing anything religious-based, especially in Christmas or celebration concerts. Although videos are allowed to be viewed by students to learn from or learn how the culture operates, they must be videos containing strictly information and not any sort of information telling students why their religion is better than others. If a teacher is very religious, they are not allowed to pray in front of students. They must be very careful that students do not see them praying. In fact, in 2009, a Florida principal got in trouble for praying in the classroom. The principal may face jail time for praying in school, and the principal, in addition, got banned from speaking at their class graduation because the public felt, quote, she's a Christian and might say something religious, end quote. This case has caused a lot of controversy for the Florida area. In January, the Santa Rosa County School District settled out of the court with ACLU agreeing to several things, including a provision to ban all school employees from promoting or sponsoring prayers during school-sponsored events, holding school events at church venues when a secular alternative was available, or promoting their religious beliefs or attempting to convert students in class or during school-sponsored events. In addition, the school district also agreed to forbid the principal from speaking at the graduation ceremony to ensure the principal did not say something, quote, too Christian, end quote. When reading cases like this, it's sad to see the principal was stripped from her position and will no longer get to speak at the graduation simply because she decided to pray in public. She was not trying to hurt anyone or persuade anyone into becoming a religion they were not used to. But as a teacher, you are able to allow students to form extracurricular religious groups. To me, it doesn't make sense that you are able to allow students to form groups, but you are not allowed to pray on school grounds. The Equal Access Act allows students to form Bible studies. Along with this rule, someone from the outside community is not allowed to host these groups. In public schools, school officials do not want people from outside the school to come in and try and change the students' thoughts and feelings on what they believe in. In secondary schools or private schools, students are allowed to form a religious group with the help of outsiders and teachers. There is a large difference between the public schools and secondary schools regarding religion, with everything what is mentioned in the classroom to what is allowed outside of the classroom for teachers as well as students. Martin Marty was one of the biggest reasons for the separation of church and state. Martin's wide-ranging interests within the field of American religion were exemplified by the subject matter of his books, which emerged at a rate of more than one per year after 1959. He probed specific religious beliefs and practices such as baptism. He examined unbelief and infidelity in America. He explored and analyzed the religious movement and its quest for church and union. He charted emerging trends for American churches and especially for Protestants. And he also undertook major historical studies, again, especially for Protestants. His articles were published in many places, ranging from tiny specialized publications to the largest national magazines. Marty's casual and witty personal style made him a popular public speaker who traveled a lot around the world. Perhaps the most pervasive theme in Marty's writing was his commitment to chivalry. He argued that the only basis for a moral, just, and humane society is a respect for the beliefs and practices of others who are unlike ourselves. Yet the fact of respect for the ways of others does not mean that one should not have passion about his or her own ways. Our own roots and convictions define us, and individuals with strong, although differing, commitments make for a strong society. Outwardly, Marty argued a key to maintaining the American social fabric is chivalry, the respect that one must have for others, the fair treatment that one must give others, which leads to a wholesome, fulfilling society.
The impulse to control others is strong among parents, teachers, managers, and employers. We find it efficient to organize things so that others have to match our interests and satisfy us. Yielding that itch to control others is difficult, yet not as difficult as it is to control ourselves. The Apostle Paul, who wrote about the virtues, was often autobiographical and sometimes revealed that he was tempted to express himself in ways that harmed others. He would insist on his own way before he got control of himself, repented, and mused about how hard it is to practice self-control. That he was able to get perspective on himself and provide it for others helps those who are guided by the Spirit, which we are allowed to be, both to control ourselves and then not need to control others.